Good evening, everybody. Monday Morning Quarterback, episode 210. We are rolling through these. We're continuing our 4-week segment on some of the inner workings of shocks. Last week we asked if you guys wanted a deeper dive into shock building and shock tuning. It seems like several of you do, so if more of you are interested in that, please comment, let us know. And as we plan for our segments throughout the winter, we will definitely bring some of those for you. A couple questions that came in. One is, where do you get bronze bushings for a micro? We actually sell them here, and we have them in a couple different thicknesses depending on what ID your chassis is. So whether you got a 65, 83, 95 wall tubing in your chassis, we have bronze bushings. They're on our website. And then a question that came back with the Jacob's ladder one, and that's, a shorter ladder raises the roll center, and how does that affect your car? Well, it makes the weight transfer quicker, and it loads the right rear tire faster, which usually will lead to more grip and a tighter car. But as it does that weight transfer quicker and loads the tire faster, a lot of times the tire can't hold it, and you'll actually get loose. So you'll lose lateral grip, or side bite as we commonly refer to it. So it's important to understand that for like every action there's a reaction, and if shorter was better, we'd have Jacob's ladders this long, right? Like there's a balance there where if you get too short, it loads the tire too fast and actually goes the other way as far as grip is concerned. So great questions. We appreciate those. Keep them coming. Without further ado, we're going to cut away to this video today where we dive into shock shims, why they're so important, and a bunch of details about shock shims and things you should know about them. And then we'll jump back in here. All right, tonight we're going to talk about shock shims. They are the little army inside your shock that do the heavy lifting, all right? There are a number of different types of shims. There are cover shims or sealing shims, which will cover the ports on the piston. There is preload shims that will set the height of what the cover shim would be or sealing shim would be on a digressive piston. There's ring shims that will allow you to have a preload on a linear piston. There is bleed shims that allow fluid to bleed by before the shim actually opens. That would be in lieu of maybe a bleed hole in your piston. So a number of different shims, and what they're doing is controlling the flow of fluid through your piston. So as fluid is flowing through the ports, the shim is blocking off those holes on the other side, and vice versa. So as fluid's flowing in the compression direction, you have a shim blocking off the compression ports, which then generates force when that shim has to open. These shims come in a variety of diameters and thicknesses, and that's going to dictate how much force they generate and what your dampening curve looks like. And the shims also will there's several different ways you can go about it. So you can, if you film down here, Jack, this would be kind of like what you would call your traditional pyramid stack. So you would go largest to smallest, and these would get bolted on the piston like that. That would be like a pyramid stack. You could have a preloaded stack where you have a sealing shim, a ring shim. Say that ring shim's 12 thou. And then you have a 6 thou shim inside of it, which would generate 12 minus 6 would be 6 thousandths of preload, and then a cover shim on top of that, or a sealing shim, and that will allow the stack to preload. That'll blow off more high speed. So a number of different things you can do with shock shims to generate a specific dampening curve or a specific amount of dampening. A couple things to keep in mind is what these shims are made out of. Like we mentioned with shock oil last week, your higher end shock absorbers are using a high-end shim. So it's not just a stamped steel or spring steel This is, we use a Sandvik material. I know that's what some of your other high-end companies are using. They're very expensive. These little guys are a couple bucks a piece. So it's very easy to see how you can have, you know, $40 in shims in a shock. So these aren't the quality of shims that are going to be in your $200 retail shock absorbers. They're going to use a stamped steel. It's not going to be a shiny finish like this. It's when they stamp them, the shims aren't perfectly flat. You'll be able to see the radius, which you can see a little bit on the higher quality shims, but not as much. So depending on which orientation you lay the shim, will change your curve a little bit. And then the inexpensive materials, they're more prone to bending. And you don't want your shock shim to permanently bend. So they will open, right? As fluid flows through, it'll bend up and open, but it's going to restore its normal state and still be flat. When a shim gets bent, would be when you see a really high velocity, typically at a higher displacement, and fluid flows through that port so fast that it actually permanently bends the shim. And when you took the shim out, it would be bent. And then when that happens, your shock's going to be softer than it was originally designed for. So you don't want a shim to bend. That's why it's always important if you bike up and land back down on your wheels, if you do a big wheelie and slam down, or you flip and land back on your wheels, your shocks should go back to their tuner to make sure you don't have any bent shims and everything is working properly. Again, in your higher end shocks, it's a lot harder to bend those shims, but it still does happen, especially when you get to thinner shims. So like micros, for example, where our dampening forces are lower than a sprint car, you know, that ceiling shim might be a 6 or 8 thou thick shim, where on a sprint car it might be 10 or 12. So that thinner shim can be more prone to bending. So again, these guys are the soldiers working inside your shock, doing the heavy lifting, opening and closing thousands of times per lap. Very, very integral part of your shock absorber, and the higher quality shim that you can have in there, the better. Hope you guys got something out of that little video we did. If you're still watching, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Ring the bell for notifications. We want to continue to grow this, and can't do it without the help of all you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a fantastic week, and good luck racing wherever you're doing that this weekend.